This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we'll have short recap of what we discussed day before yesterday. You have any queries, Mike?
No.
Okay, fine. So I'll just start with a small recap. So what we discussed, we are discussing about the strings, and we saw there are two ways of creating your string object. One is with a string literal, and one more is by using a string keyword. Right, and when you are trying to create an object with string literal, so how many objects are going to create? Only one object. So we have discussed it, but I'm just small recalling. So if I do like this, how many objects will be created? It is going to create only one object, and where it is creating? It is creating in your string constant pool area. Right, and if I'm trying to create the same object like this, so whether it is going to create one more object, Daniel, Mike?
No.
No. Why? Because it is the thing is it is the reference for the what your string is. So it has to be created in string constant pool area. In string constant pool area, before creating an object, it will never create new object. What happens? It is going to check that, and if the object is present, it is not going to create that object, right? So this is your heap area. I'm just assuming this is my heap area. Even you don't have recording, so there is a little bit. So, and this is nothing but your string constant. Pool area. It's going to create a string object. Hello. And if you're trying to create one more object, it will not create. So, but for example, if I'm creating an object like this, string s1 equals to something, and new string uh, Raj. So with some name I'm creating. So in this case, how many objects will be created, Mike?
Two objects.
So one is in your heap area, one more is in your string constant pool area, right? So,
Yeah.
but your objects points to the, but your reference points to the object which is present in your string constant, sorry, heap area. So, but S1 points to the object which is present in your heap area, not in the string constant. So this is what we have seen. So the constant name indicates, right? So there are no duplicate objects will be created in your pool, only single object. So that's what we have seen. So you can able to see my screen, right, properly only?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have seen all this. There are two ways, and it's going to point like this. So these are the different methods that are available in string. So we'll discuss. So or we'll not be discussing all the methods. So we can discuss some of the important methods that are present in string. Like for example, when you want to find the length of the string, use a length method. So it is going to return the number of strings, and you have a method called substring. So what is the meaning of the substring is? So for example, whenever you have some hello world and something hello world or something, and in that hello in middle you want to add some text, right? So in between hello and world you want some hello uh, some Raj world or something, right? So hello some X world, you want to add something in between string, you just use a substring. So we'll see with little examples these things at a point of time. There are like different methods. You have equals method, replace methods. So you want to convert to upper string, you will be using this to uppercase or lower cases, and removes the ending and starting spaces. You have a string. So we'll see with little more examples. So one more thing is your string is immutable. That's what we have started in day before yesterday. What is this immutability is whenever you are trying to add some text to the string. So for example, when you say string is equals to hello, your hello object will be created. And if you're trying to add some content to that string, right? So then it will never add to the same object. It is going to create a new object. So you use a concat method to add something to a string. I think you're getting it, right? So for example, if you are having a string s equals to hello, right? So my hello objects get created, right? So for example, if I am trying to add something to that, so I just want to make, I have created a string object with hello. But what I want, if I want to add something, I don't want hello, I am trying to make hello world. So if I use a concat method, so s dot, I have a method called concat. So what is this? So else dot, you have a method called concat. So concat means it is going to add something to the existing string. So we have a string with s equals to such, they are adding as dot concat such 10 to something, right? So same way, if you are trying to add this something like world, what happens? It is not going to uh, add, it is not going to edit in this object. What happens? It is going to create one more new object with hello world. So the space is not sufficient, so I'm not writing it properly. So it is going to create one more object, right? So it will not, I have not written it properly, but the object has created with hello world. The space is not sufficient, right? I think you can able to get. So it will never add to an existing object. So that is the reason you call it as immutable. Immutable means you cannot change the content of the string. So when you're trying to change the content of the string, it is going to create it with a new object, right? So you have several reasons why the strings are immutable. We'll see. But I think you are clear what is the immutability. Mike,
Yes.
you are clear with what is the immutability,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Mm.
So once
Yes.
you create an object, you cannot change the content of that. When you are trying to change the content of the any string, it is going to create a one more new object. So it will never change the existing object. So that is nothing but your immutable. So it is not mutable. It is immutable. So if you want, you can read the text of that also. So immutable means that unmodified or unchangeable. Once a string is created and its data and state cannot be changed to a new string, the object is created. Let us try. So that's what your immutability. You want to ask something?
What about this site?
Sorry?
This is a site. It's a good site. Java Point.
Yes, yes. Java
Free.
point. You can use this.
It's
Right?
famous in Java for the developer.
No, I suggest you only want to use a like there are many sites. Java T, Java tutorial. So Java T is very simple and easy. If you want, you can use this. I have Greeks for Greek.
I use the W3 school.
This is very good site actually. Greeks for Greeks. Right? If you want, I'll just so you can use most of the things, but see, this is also very good. For Java, so you have some little deeper things here. If you want to learn things a little more deeper, you can use this. You can use Java T point. So this is very simple.
Java T point is more basic things, right?
Yes, yes, it will. They will not be going deeper, but you can able to understand it. It will be very simple and good.
Okay.
Okay, you have Java tutorial.
For me, yes. For me, I think a T point for now is more suitable for me.
Okay, yes, yes, go for T point. So when you find something to be learned in deeper, you just go for Greeks first. Okay, you have Java T point, Java tutorial also. There will also you have the basic things. You have Java tutorial also. So there are a lot of sites actually. So for learning Java, I don't suggest you to learn with W3 schools. You can learn, but these are good sites. This is a little. I feel this is little good than W3.
Okay.
Okay. I think I've told you in the beginning of my class also, but I don't. So if you see, you have such, they have created a string S with Sachin, and they're trying to add something to that. And what happens? It is going to create a new object in string constant pool area. So your strings are immutable. The same thing. So they have done with an example for that. So for that immutability concept, and if you're trying to print it, so you can see they have created an object with Sachin and they're concatenating it. And if you're printing that, it is going to print that Sachin itself. So it will never print that because the object got created, but you have not assigned it. So it means that object has not been changed to make sure that they are just printing it. So you can see the reason, there are a lot of reasons for security. Also, your strings are immutable. And if I type why strings are immutable, you get a lot of things. So you have the main purpose of security. And one more thing is whenever, so for example, there is one object that will be pointing to the different reference variables, right? So for example, if you trying to change the content of the object, it has to be reflected in all the references. So that is one of the reasons. And what is the meaning of this security is, so for example, when you are trying to have the database user ID, password, and all these things, so generally these things they will be in the form of strings only, right? So for example, assume that if you made a string as a mutable thing, and from someone end, if they are trying to change your object, they can able to change your user ID, they can able to change your password. So it should not happen, right? So once your user ID has been created, for example, you created a user ID with string and you created a password of string type. So it should not be editable. It should not change anyone. So for example, if you're trying to change the user ID, it will be creating a new object. It should not add something to another existing object. So for security reasons, and because whenever you do this transformations, right? So most of the places in Java use strings, string literals only, right? You even can read the immutability. What is the reasons? So you understood what is immutability and why the string is immutability. So Java internal pool is something you can take it as the string constant pool area. So here they are not they're speaking what we discussed as of now, right? String values to the is a space region that strings are stored by JVMs in string. Since the strings are immutable in Java, the JVM optimizes the amount of memory located for them, and by storing only copy of each literal in the pool, this process is called string. Okay, you understood, right?
Yeah.
So it is going to save the memory, right? So whenever two references are pointing it to the same object. And what I've told you that security reasons, right? So whenever you cannot able to, you just go and read more on this. And synchronization being immutability automatically makes a string thread safe since it could not be changed even accessed for multiple threads, and its immutability. Objects in shell can be shared across multiple threads running simultaneously. This also has thread safety because if thread changes the value, then instead of modifying the same, a new string can be created in thread pool. Hence, the strings are safe for multi-threading. Is this clear? So, so whenever you do string as immutability thing, so you can make multiple threads too. So generally that what I told you, multiple threads will access the string at a same time. Whenever your multiple threads are accessing, if anyone thread is trying to change it, it is not going to change the same content, right? So even that is the point that it will be safer. And you have hash code hashing. So if you want, it's like performance thing. The string is
But
divided.
the performance it's a little bit like because the string is immutable, so that means when let's say when you have a concatenation, so it will automatically create a new object, right?
Yes, yes.
So in like so in that way, like in my mind, you have that means you have you will create more objects in the heap area in the JVM. In that case, the performance should be like a degrade, like
Yes, yes, I
so.
understood the point.
Yeah,
So
but here it says performance is like enhanced. It's
enhance
a
the
little
performance
bit
by saving
confused for me. Yeah.
by saving the heap area and faster access of hash implementation when operated with strings. So since string is mostly widely used data structure, improving the performance of structure or performance of string have considerably effect on improving the performance of whole application in general. So why they are saying because string pool exists because strings are immutable. So if you see string pool pool exists because strings are immutable. All right. So what is this? So generally, you don't have. You can read this as we see previously. String pool exists because strings are immutable. So what is the meaning of string pool? Is nothing but a string constant pool area. So that is there because strings are immutable. So in turn, it enhances performance by saving heap memory and faster accessing of hash implementation when compared to the strings. Compared with the so your string constant pool area exists. It means, so when you are trying to create a string with the literal, so what happens? It is not going to create an object in heap area, right? So when the objects are not created in a heap area, it is enhancing your performance, right? So there is separate area for the strings, right? So which is your string constant pool area, which is independent of your heap area. So whenever, for example, when you want to get something, right? Whenever you want to get a string object, what happens? You directly go to the JVM or operating, you directly go to the string constant pool. It will never search in a heap area, right? So it means what happens? You are improving your performance. You got my right. For example, you have an employee object. So what happens? It is going to, so heap area is a very big one, right? So you have a string constant pool here, which is a smaller part in it, right? So but the point is whether you create an object with literal or whether you create an object with the new keyword, what happens? For sure, there will an object will be created in a string constant pool area, right? So what happens whenever you are trying to get the object or when you are trying to search or some mod anything that you want to do, what happens? It is not going to search in the heap area. You have a specific area for the string constant pool area. That is your string constant pool area, right? So object is going to directly get from the string constant pool area. So it means you are not searching in the heap area and you are increasing the performance. Is that clear for you now?
Yes.
Okay. So why that exists? Because it is immutable. So for example, it will not be for other objects. So when if I create an employee object, if I don't, generally that is mutable. So you can change the content of the object. You will change the state of the object, right? So for example, I'll create an employee object and I'll have an ID, right? So I'll be changing the ID to some value. So initially the ID value will be 0. So what happens? I'll make the ID to 2 or 3. So what does it mean? So what I'm doing here? I am making the so it means what I'm doing? I am just changing the content of the object. So I'm just making the change to the object. That means that objects are mutable. So whatever the object that we see before classes like employee objects or any normal objects, right? We have created a class here. So user defined, mostly they are mutable objects. We'll see how to make a normal class also immutable. So their memory will be created, the objects will be created in your heap. So you can see the conclusion also. In conclusion, the strings are immutable previously, so there is a reference can be treated as a normal variable and one can pass them around to methods and process threads without worrying about whether the actual string object it is pointing to will be changed, right? So it is not a worry for you whether the objects gets changed or not. You can just play around with that. So because it is never going to change the content of it. So the security is whatever we discussed it. Username, passwords, connection URLs, networks. So everything you use it, you just write it as a string only. So when you want to connect to a database, you need a URL for that database, right? So all this you do with a string. So I think it's little slow. So we have two kinds of methods in strings, right? Like your equals method as well as double equals method. So what is this? So we'll see first of all how to write an immutable class. So what is the meaning of immutable class? A class which cannot change when you cannot change the content of that class, right? So if you're trying to change, it has to create a new class. So string examples. We are discussing yesterday with this true and false, right? So generally, when you want to make a string as an immutable thing, so you need to declare your class as a final. So it means it cannot be overridden. So for example, I want to make this class as a immutable. So I'll be declaring this class as a final. So it means I cannot able to override class. So once you declare any, so for example, any variable as a final, what happens? You cannot change that variable name, right? So for example, you cannot able to modify that variable name. So for example, when you declare any method as a final, you cannot override it. So when you declare any class as a final, you cannot extend it, right? Is that clear, Mike? If I declare a method as a final, I cannot override that method. If I declare a variable as a final, so the final is a keyword which can be applied to all the class level, method level, variable level. So when you declare a method as a final, you cannot override. When you declare variable as final, you cannot change the value of that. So similarly, when you declare a class as a final, you cannot able to so you cannot able to extend that class. So that extension I cannot do. So if I say class A, something like if say class A extends the string examples, it will show me an error. Sorry. I don't know why. Again, before it was okay, Eclipse. Again, I need to reboot my system or something I need to do. So it will show me an error. Subclasses, subclass final. So okay, the type A cannot be the subclass for the because it cannot be a subclass for this because you cannot try to extend the class if it is a final one. And the next thing that you need to declare, you need to declare a variable. Whatever the variables or the data that is present in your string should be fine. So for example, I'll declare int ID. So and that ID, so something 3 I'm declaring or 2. So that should be fine. And you don't have any setters or getters, so you don't have any setter methods to change the value, right? So generally you will have a set methods, right? So to change set the value, you'll have a setter methods, right? So you don't have the setter methods, you have only the getter methods. So main method. So I declared a class as a final, and whatever the variable that is present, I made it as a final. And while creating the object itself, what I'll do, I'll pass that reference variable. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
So while creating itself, I'll not declare a value. So while creating an object, I'll be just start. And I have a getter method, get ID, that is going to return me the ID. So this is nothing but your immutable class. So to make this immutable class, what we done, we declared a class as a final, and the data members, what are the methods that are there, they are also final. So for example, if you have one more name and all these things, that will be also the final one. And you will have a constructor where you will be passing as a one parameters whatever the variables that you have. For example, I have a name here, I'll be passing that name. And what I'll do here, I'll have no setter methods. So because you cannot able to change the content, you have only the sorry that's what you cannot able to change the content. You don't have only setter methods, you have only the getter methods. So this is an example of your immutable class. So while creating an object itself, you pass the type. An example. So first one equals to new function example. I'll pass that ID some 3. So it is going to create with that 3, and I'm calling this one dot get ID. So if you want to print that value, so you don't have any setters to set that value. So you cannot able to change that ID value. So while creating an object, whatever the value that you pass, that's the only one you have. So for example, if I'm trying to change that ID value, it will not allow. S1 dot id equals to some 4 or 5, it will not allow, because this is an immutable one. So you cannot change this object. You cannot override it and you cannot change it. It is going to print that constant value id. So now generally now your class behaves like an immutable one, like your string. I'm trying to create one more object. S2. I'll pass something 4. Something. Count 4 the same way. So here you cannot able to change the content of the objects. Whatever the data that is present, you cannot able to change the state of the object. So that is nothing but your immutability. Is it clear? Confused?
Get ID is a predefined method.
No, I am writing a method.
You writing method.
Yes.
Return
So
okay, so
I have
return
the setters and getters, right?
yeah.
So I've discussed you, like for example, when you have a setters and getters. So in a class, I can have a setters and getters, right?
Yeah.
Whether I have discussed or you have an idea of that or no?
Setter and getter.
Yes. Setter and getters methods actually. So I have an int ID. I have a assume it string name. So these are the variables, right? Assume it these are nothing but your private variables. So these are my private variables. So what is the meaning of private? Where you cannot able to access that variable outside your class. Is it right?
Yes.
Yes. So can I able to access this variables outside my class? So for example, I have an employee, the string employees. So employee class, right? So I'm creating an employee object. So you have a setters and getters. So so employee object equals to new employee object. I'll say what is the requirement, what is the need of that. So can I able to do e dot id? 3 can I do? No, because it will not be visible, because that is nothing but your private method, right? If I remove private, I can able to do in the same package. Now I can able to do, right? So but what you have a requirement, you have a private variable and you want to access that from outside the class. Then how can I do? Then I can do these things by having a setters and getters. So generally in a class you declare it as a private variables, right? What is the meaning? You declare it as a private variables that cannot be accessed directly, but they can be accessed indirectly. So what is the meaning of indirectly? I can have a setters and getters. So what is the setters and getters? So for example, for any value will, what are the two things that you do? You will queue some value, id equals to, I'm giving 3. So what is this? I'm setting some value. So system.out.println, I'm printing that out. I don't have a main method. That's it. So what I'm doing here, Okay, I'll make it as static. So don't worry about these errors. Why it is remaining? Okay, I have assigning somewhere. Right? That's the reason it's error. Sorry. So if you see, what is this? This is nothing but I'm setting a value, right? I have an int id equals to 3, some id variable, and I'm giving the value. So this is I'm setting some value, right? So if I'm printing it, what this is nothing but getting the value, right? So whenever you have a variable, you do two things, right? You do set the value, you get the value, right? So instead of this, you have something like setters and getters. So in a set method, you will set the value for that, and in a get method, you will get the value for that. So here I have a private variables, right? So when I have a private variables, I cannot able to access that outside the class, right? But you can able to access by using a setters and getters. So what is this setters and getters? As I told you, it is going to set the values as well as get the values. For example, for an ID, I want to set some value. So whenever you are giving some value, whenever you want to set 1 or 2 for any variable, whether that will have a return type? No, right? You understood? ID equals to 3 I'm doing. So this is nothing but I'm doing a setting a value, right? Instead of doing ID equals to 3 directly, what I want to do, I want to do this operation inside a method. That's it. I'm giving ID equals to 3, right? I want to do this inside a method, right? So when you want to do this operation inside a method, it will not have a return, right? A return type for setting, right? So I'm having a void and having a set a method called set ID. I'm writing this method, user defined method, right? No, it's not a predefined method, or I'm writing that ID, set ID, right? So for that set ID, what I need to pass? I need to pass the value that I want to set, right? So int some ID I'm passing. So this is the variable I'm passing. Now what I need to do? Whatever the variable that passed to this method has to be given to this instance variable. So for that, what I'll do, this dot ID equals to ID. You have seen this lot in many places. So this is nothing but you are setting the value. So whenever you are calling, so when you want to set the value for this ID, instead of writing ID equals to 3 directly, what you do, you call this method and give the value to that. So to call this method, what I need to create an object. And after creating an object, what I'm doing, e dot, instead of set ID, what I'll do, I'll pass something. So the two passes over here and it comes to the instance variable that will assign to your, so this local variable will be assigning into your instance variable. So this is how you are setting a value to this, right? So when you want to get a value, what is the meaning of that getting? You need a which return type? Whenever you want to get that value, the return type is int. So I'll have a method called get id. So here what I need to return? I need to return that id. So these are simple your setters and getters, right? You are writing a setters and getters methods. So this can be accessed now from the outside the class. So how will I access it? By using a method. So e dot, I'll have a set method. So and I'll pass some value. Right? If I want to pass another value, so similarly e dot set ID, set value. Is this clear?
Yeah. Okay.
What is setters and getters?
Mm.
Okay, we can go to the previous one, right? So I thought I have missed this thing, so that's the reason I'm just repeating it. So whenever we found something that we missed it, so we'll continue that and we'll be going back to other one. So even you can Eclipse will have a choice that you can directly generate the setters and getters. So select and you can have a option called source here. So when you have a source, it will show you generate getters and setters. So you can see get name for this. I'm just generating the getter. So it is going to generate that getters and setters. So setting a value and getting the value. That's it. Hope you are clear, right? So similarly, so get ID is something that I am writing a method, right? So because you are getting an ID, so I'm writing a method called get ID, and we are returning that instance variable. That's it. So here you don't have a setter methods. Why you don't have a setter method? Because you should not able to change the content of the object. So that's the reason you don't have any setters methods. So this is the example of your immutable class, where you cannot able to change the content of the object, right? So this is the second object I'm creating. So if you want, we can take this or not at point. This is your immutable concept. What you do for the class to make it immutable, you will write a final class, you will write a final variables. Variables should be declared as a final. You will have a getter method and you will have a constructor. While creating an object, pass a value to that. Right? You cannot able to change the content of that. So that is your immutable class.
You send me a code. Okay. Sorry. Just give me one moment. I will save it.
Yes, take it.
Class. Okay. Yeah. Just please. Where is my? Okay, here. Okay, no, it's here. Okay, so here. This one. Okay, this one. Okay, so now 35, 35, 35, immutable class. Is just like a string is immutable, or in Java there are more other immutable ones for the class?
Yes, yes. So you have some other classes also immutable. So I'll be
Oh,
discussing.
okay.
Right? Good one. I'll just let you know.
Yeah, sure.
So you have done the copy paste, right?
Yes, now I'm done.
Okay. And you have this equals and double equals methods. So we'll see what is this. So this is also a very important thing. You have equals and equals. So there are two things. Here, what is this double equals is a normal thing that you know, right? It is going to compare the value. For example, if I say int a equals to 3, and if I say int b equals to 3, if I say a double equals to b, yes, it is true, because it is going to compare only the you can see the
Yeah, that means exactly same.
yeah, exactly same. So I can tell you, like, it is going to compare the hash code or object memory. So in term, I can say it is going to compare you. For example, when you create an object, it is going to have a memory. So if you are trying to create one more object, it will have a same memory, right? So it is going to compare the memory of that object, right? So you have the equals method. So that also do the same. But what happens in the string, they have overridden this equals method, right? So we know that you have an object class that is parent of all the classes, whatever the class that you create, right? Like your employee object or any string buffer object or whatever the object that you create. For that object, what you have an equals method. So whatever the object that you create, for all the objects, you have an object class which is of parent. That's what we have seen it, right? So you have an object class which is a predefined one, which will have 11 methods. So in that, one of the method is your equals method, and this is a method that is present in your object class, and all the classes are nothing but your child classes of your object class, right? So generally, when you are not doing overriding of this equals method, this behaves like double equals method, right? Give me 1 minute, Mike.
Mm.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, Balaji here.
Yes, Balaji.
Good day, customers. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we are discussing that equals and dot equals, right? So here you have this equals method in an object class, which will behave like this double equals, right? So it is going to compile the hash code or something, right? So hash code, or I can say the memory where your object, where the object has been created. For example, if you create an object A, it will have a memory, right? So if you create an object C or D, it will have a memory. So that memory location is going to compare with this double equals to, right? It is going to compare whether the objects having the same memory or not, right? They are pointing with the same memory. So if these are equal, you're pointing, there is only one object, you're pointing with two references. So this is the equals method. Will also do the same exactly what your double equals to do. But what they have done in a string, they have overridden this equals method. So you know what is the meaning of overriding, right? So the same method you are trying to write with the same signature. So why I'm telling it as overriding? Because string is also a subclass of object class. So whatever the class you take, that is an object. That is a subclass of your object class. Now they have overridden this equals method, and this equals method they have written a code not to compare what happens that is not comparing the your memory location. They have written a code to make it compared with the what I can say your content. So this equals method now which is present in the string class, which is going to compare the content. So what they have done, the string is a predefined class and object is also predefined class. So what they have done in a string class itself, they have overridden the equals method that is present in the object class, and they have written a code in such way it is not going to compare the memory location, it is going to compare the content of the string, right? So I'll tell you this with some more examples that will makes you clear. So if I say string s equals to hello, and string s1 equals to hello. So here how many objects will be created, Mike? Only
one object.
one object, right? So if
Yes.
I'm trying to print
one object created in the string constant pool.
So if I'm trying to print that with dot equals and double equals, so s1 double equals to yes, so or you can say s double equals to s1. So I'm comparing
it will be true. Why did I say error?
Statica.
Oh, okay.
Static not required.
Also, the S will be static. Yeah.
This is a non-static method, right? This is a static method, right? So
Yeah,
you cannot.
that's right. That's right. Now it will be true result.
So dot equals to I'm printing s1. So both the cases whether it will be true.
So first one for sure is true. So
Yes.
second print out s equals second one I think is also true.
Yes, because it is going to compare the content. So both will be true. So you see both are true. So, but if I'm trying to add a new string, I'm creating an object with. So in this case,
false.
Two objects, right?
False.
So your first one will be false or second one will be false?
First one for sure is false.
Yes, but second one is true because
second one equals. Second one will be true because it only compare the content, right?
Exactly. So it is not going to compare
because it will not compare the hash code everything. It will only compare the content, right?
Yes. So you can see the output points.
Okay.
Okay. So okay, Mike. So even I got call, so we will be connecting it tomorrow.
Sure,
Fine?
sure, sure. Okay. So
Okay.
we will connect tomorrow or not?
No, we'll connect tomorrow mostly.
Okay, same time.
Yes, yes, same.
Okay, okay, okay. Have a good night.
Okay.
So we will talk tomorrow. Okay.